Big Island Video News covers the arrival of the storied Hōkūleʻa voyaging canoe in Hilo Bay, where the crew prepares to embark on a historic journey across the world's oceans.
So we always, safety is the biggest issue, right? So we always have radio communication with our escort vessels.
In the upcoming worldwide voyage of Hōkūleʻa, safety is a primary concern. Crew members say the route around the globe was planned according to a number of factors, taking into account a variety of potential dangers.
Part of the planning for the sail plan, the route, was based on many different factors, and maybe you'll have a chance to meet Lehua Kamalu, who did most of that planning. But it was the location of hurricanes and typhoons and making sure that we were in the opposite side of the world. It's watching the winds and the currents and all of the weather conditions and making sure that we're in the areas that are favorable. And one of the factors was piracy. And so in the Indian Ocean, they took a good look at where the piracy risks are. And the determination it was that it's safer, there's less risk in going to Africa and rounding the Cape and coming back up than going through the Indian Ocean and coming out in the Mediterranean, which was an early hope.
When we researched the sail plan, safety has been the number one thing. So besides piracy, it's been hurricanes. So we make sure we're in the opposite side of the hurricane season wherever we are. So pretty much we can almost guarantee we won't run into a hurricane because we researched the last 50 years of data, unless all of a sudden with global warming a hurricane appears. Winds, we have to make sure we're in the right wind system so that we can sail it. And then human violence issues. So right now the sail plan, if we know there was a piracy attack or an attempted attack, we're not going there.
Aside from storms and pirates, even day-to-day life on the vessel carries a certain amount of risk. A task as common as going to the bathroom can be a treacherous proposition.
It's our captain's box, so this is all the safety gear. We have harnesses for whenever you use the bathroom. I don't know if you want to show how we use the bathroom.
I'm sure I can figure it out.
You hang off the side, and so this, this helps us whenever we leave the railings of the canoe. You always have one hand for the canoe, and then one hand for doing your work. So this helps us be safe. So this is our man overboard pole. So if for some reason someone goes overboard, there are two light strobes. So you flick on the top strobe, you throw this in the water, and it has 1,200 feet of line with a harness attached to it, and it should go out to the person. Their job is to yell as loud as they can because sometimes they'll go into shock and it'll be 3 in the morning and no one will know. So that's why crew members for a deep sea voyage have to be able to swim at least a mile in an hour. And overnight, we practice falling into water with foul weather gear, with all your clothes on. How do you use that as something to float on? And then we try and bring them back in and steer into the wind, call our escort boat. So there's a whole process for man overboard.
That's why Hōkūleʻa's companion vessel, Hiki Analia, plays such a big role in the safety of the crew.
The escort vessel that we just built, Hiki Analia, our sister vessel, is totally solar powered. She has electric engines, no more diesel. So we'll have 2 documenters with cameras, and they'll be taking footage every day, sending live footage back to Hawaii, editing it, and then shooting it out to news stations and our website. And that's going to transform the awareness and the education that we've never had before, and now we're going to have internet on board and satellite capability.
Some of Hōkūleʻa's seasoned voyagers know firsthand how badly things can go wrong out on the ocean.
This is not an easy story. I will give you and tell you, you came here, you wanted to be here, I'll tell you what I see is the truth.
During a recent talk at Hilo's Imiloa Astronomy Center, Nainoa Thompson recalled the emotional story of Hōkūleʻa's ill-fated second voyage.
There's a second voyage planned for the need to be in the wake and go back down to Kahikinui. In hindsight, we planned poorly. In hindsight, our training was inadequate, and in hindsight, the canoe wasn't ready. Make a long story short, it was a short evening. That second voyage was at We departed from the LOI in the 16th of March, 1978, and we made a lot of mistakes. We didn't have an escrow boat. We had one form of communications back to ship to shore on a single sideband radio.
It is a tragic story involving one of the state's iconic watermen, a man who many call a true Hawaiian hero.
Eddie was known worldwide. He was known for the one that would be fearless and surf the world's biggest waves. And even till today, the claim is that Eddie surfed the world's largest wave, 55 feet, unassisted by jet skis or anything else. Just his physical power and courage to go. But more importantly, this place is a place right here called Waimea Bay for those who find out how unforgiving the ocean is when you're not ready. Eddie knows about that. The city and county record books show that Eddie, he was the first to be stationed at Waimea Bay, and nobody else, because he was the best. He was so good, he was the best. And at this bay, he was asked to go out over 500 times to help those who find out how the ocean is when you're not ready. And on the record, it shows he went out 500 times and he lost 0. 0. Him and his fins. No jet skis, no nothing, just him. And the other part of Eddie that was so amazing was that everybody knew him. And he was deeply loved. He was a quiet man, of few words, but he was highly respected. And he was the reason that I always had enormous respect for Eddie, because those that loved him were young people, children, because he was of the stature of the hero, the one that had, not the one that we fabricate on television, but the one that is real, the one that children can believe in. Eddie created dreams and hope into the hearts and minds of the instincts and intuition of young children in a time when Hawaiian children need it the most.
Aikau was on the Hōkūleʻa on March 16, 1978, when the double-hull canoe set sail for Tahiti. A few days after the start of the journey, it all went wrong.
We took off near sunset time, and it was stormy, and we sailed towards Lanai into the Molokai Channel called the Kaiwi. Kaiwi is the name for the bone, which is characteristic to the intensity of the white water in that channel when the current and wind oppose, stacks those waves. The wind turned to gale. It was rough. Around midnight time, something's very wrong with the canoe. It wouldn't respond. I remember myself and Bruce Blankenfeld opening up one of the hatches and taking a flashlight and looking down the hull, and all you saw was just pure, crystal clear, solid aqua turquoise water up to the top of the deck. The leeward hull was flooded, and we were in trouble. We call it stacking waves. It's like the waves move across the ocean at different speeds, bigger the faster, but the big waves catch the small waves, even though the waves might be 12 feet. When they catch the small waves in the wrong place at the right time, Hōkūleʻa just got right into one of these hydraulic cycles, and the whole wave just picked the whole canoe up and turned the whole thing upside down. And a couple of things. The only world that was above sea level was about 3 feet of one hull that trapped the air when it turned over. Hōkūleʻa was fully rigged underwater. You had a crew of 14. And in the gale, it was so windy that imagine that you're on that hull, 14 of you sitting on the keel of one hull, 3 feet above sea level, and you can't even talk to two people down the road because it's so windy. and we're getting knocked off the canoe by big waves. And it was. And the thing about the moment at that time, nobody knew. Only 14 people knew where we were and the condition that we were in.
The story was clearly emotional for Thompson to retell.
I don't know anybody would ever tell Eddie no. So, of course, it was a beautiful idea. But that leadership choice, put the surfboard in the water. Canoe goes over, it falls off the rail, it's in the water, and we go get it, bring it back. And at midnight and at sunrise, you see, you can't hear it because the wind is so loud. But you see Eddie in front of the captain. And you don't hear the words, but you know what he's saying. Let me go. Then you see Eddie sit down. The captain told him no. But we keep knocking off. And nobody knows. We keep getting knocked off the canoe and nobody knows. And make a long story short, you see Eddie again. Relentless. You talk to his brother, Clyde, and it wasn't a choice. Eddie was going to go no matter what. So you don't blame the captain. Eddie was going to go. Mid-morning, you see Eddie in front. You don't know the words, but you know what he's saying. You see someone tie a black knitted bag around his waist. You see somebody put bags of poi inside a knitted bag. You see someone put a couple of oranges in there. You see someone tie a life jacket. Eddie's going to go. And in the obvious, every single cell in this man's body, 500, he's got to go. And that's the obvious. But Eddie told me once, Nainoa, I need to sail on Hōkūleʻa. I need to go down the road of my ancestors. I need to be in the wake. I need to pull Tahiti out of the sea. We need to bring pride and dignity back to our ancestors and our kupuna and give it to children. If anybody understood the purpose and the destiny of Hōkūleʻa, he did. He starts to paddle out. I swim out. I'm feeling like it's not right. It don't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. I'm nobody. I'm just a crew member. Grab his arm. Ask him, I can't tell Eddie not to do anything, but you ask him the question, should you go? And he pulls his arm away. He just paddles off. We see him climbing these waves up the face, and you lose him in the trough. Then you see the life jacket come off. A story that you're not going to hear in public. But you need to know about this greatness of this man. When the wind blows so strong and it kicks up so much white water, every time that white water breaks, every time it breaks on the sea, it throws salt into the air. There was so much breaking of the white water out there in the gale that we call it ehukai. It's this like a fog. It's just this thick band of salt on the horizon. You couldn't see Oahu. It was in the ehukai. You could barely see the top of Kamaloa Molokai and barely the top of Lanai Hale. And the thing about Eddie that you need to know, he had bad eyesight. And it was daytime. And he knew he'd be there nighttime. He knew that. Eddie set off to save his friends, to go to an island he couldn't see. To go to the island he couldn't see. No one in the voyaging community ever complains about sailing anymore. That much of what we do in the voyaging canoe is to go to destinations we can't see because of him. We were rescued. I was on the helicopter, the first one, picked up by the Coast Guard, plucked from the sea, landed in the black tarmac of the Honolulu International airport south ramp. Hundreds of cars there. Don't know how to own your words. People everywhere. Black, dark, windy, stormy. Recognize an old van, the ICAO van. Go to the van with the expectation that we got rescued because Eddie made it. Opened the door. Pops ICAO, Eddie's father's in the front seat. Powerful man, quiet. And his mom was in the back. Too young to understand what you're about to say, but you say it anyway with excitement. Where's Eddie? Where's Eddie? And of the pain of the time, I will never forget a Hawaiian mother wail and cry for her son who was lost at sea. She cried and she wailed through the night.
The failure weighed heavily on Thompson and the crew.
I didn't see Nainoa for at least a month after he came back, Will Caselco recalls. He was mourning. He was encapsulated in his grief. He felt guilty. I didn't want to bother him. Nainoa continued to go out in his skiff to watch the night sky, but even the stars seemed to have changed. Nothing seemed real anymore. Nainoa recalls, the idea of navigating or voyaging was gone. When we lost Eddie, the feeling of shame was so strong. How could we go on? Then Nainoa recalled a conversation with Eddie after one of the crew gatherings in Honolulu. Nainoa told Eddie about his dream of learning to navigate and the insights he was gaining by watching the night sky. Eddie listened intently, murmuring approval. I've got a dream too, Eddie said. What is it? My dream is about this voyage. I want to see what my ancestors saw. I want to see Tahiti rise from the sea, Eddie said. To see Tahiti rise from the sea is a powerful dream, Nainoa remembers. It means you're approaching an island by sea, and as you get nearer, it appears to rise up from the ocean surface. That's what our ancestors saw when they voyaged to Hawaii and back to Tahiti. That's what I think Eddie meant, that he was going to sail on the path of his ancestors and raise Tahiti from the sea. That's a powerful vision. Eddie gave his life for that vision.
To this day, safety is foremost on the mind of the master navigator.
The worldwide voyage is, we keep you up at night, we wake you up in a cold sweat. Because when you ask these young people, you want to go, they're going to say yes. But can you keep them safe? The Pacific is one thing. It's a kind, deep ocean. The Indian is not. 2 hurricane systems, 5 monsoon systems, highest incidence of piracy in the world. We have the highest incidence of roadways. We're stuck. Hard to get around Africa without the Panama Canal. And we don't know yet, but it keeps you up. To outweigh the risk and outweigh the danger, you have to be prepared. So behind you, you see the core. The core, older generation, that when you ask the child, do you want to go, they understand what they're getting into when the child does not. And so we depend on them and the many others. It's actually 47,000 nautical miles. It'll go to 28 countries. It'll make 62 ports. We will take on board about 250 individual crew members that will be changed 19 times. We're all volunteers. Our families and our jobs come first. Making that time is an enormous commitment, but we need that commitment. The worldwide voyage is going to take us to places that we can't imagine and cement relationships that we can't see today. That's voyaging. That's why you go.
Join us all week as Big Island Video News continues our coverage of Hōkūleʻa in Hilo. Tomorrow, the departure. Hōkūleʻa set sail for the rest of Hawaii and then the world.